Looking good and moving well. These are two things that I have learned over 25 years of training experience and 15 years of coaching experience that must go hand in hand for people to feel like they're successful in their health and fitness journey. So if you want to build more than just muscle, if you want to stay healthy, build strong joints, be training for decades to come, and have the fitness to do anything that life throws at you, make sure you stay tuned today as I give you 3 important strength training tips and tools that you can bring into your training to accomplish all of that. Today's 3 training fundamentals that I'm going to introduce to you, when you apply them consistently to your training, are going to allow you to, number 1, build strong and healthy joints. You're not going to wear and tear on your joints as you're trying to get fit. Number 2, it's going to allow you to build and maximize your muscle building potential without having to add and introduce unnecessary risk to your training. And last but not least, number 3, when you apply these training fundamentals, one of them in particular, you can turn your weight training, muscle building strength work into conditioning or aerobic capacity training to improve your cardiovascular fitness. We're gonna start off by introducing the kneeling landmine press. And as I go through this movement, I wanna hammer our first key concept of the day, which is lifting tempo. Now, lifting tempo is just a fancy way of saying how fast are you actually moving in the exercise. I use a script that has 4 digits. It's the first digit tells you how fast you're moving on the way down. The second digit tells you how long you're gonna spend at the bottom of the exercise. The third digit tells you how fast to go up. And the fourth digit tells you how long to spend at the top of the exercise. So an example would be 30x1. 3 seconds down, no pause at the bottom. X means fast on the way up, and a 1-second pause at the top. And that happens to be the tempo we're gonna use for the landmine press. Now, tempo is important because 1, it introduces a lot of control into your lifts. When you move with controlled tempos, you can have better mind-muscle connection with the muscles that you actually wanna be using in an exercise. 2, slowing down your lowering phase is a great way to build muscle building potential in your training without having to add lots of extra load. So by using a slow tempo, you can get a great bout of intensity in the muscles that you're training without jacking up the weights and introducing risk. And then number 3, if you introduce these really purposeful pauses, you can build isometric strength and stretch into the movements that you're doing. So let's take a look at how the landmine press plays out with this tempo, and I'll give you some technique points on what I'd like to see. First, you're gonna take this kneeling stance, and both knees are gonna be at 90 degrees. You're gonna brace in your midsection, and you're gonna keep your hips tight. You wanna feel like you're actually in a good stable position with your legs flexed. You're gonna grab the end of this landmine, place it right in front of your shoulder. And when I press up, I'm going to press and lean into the bar, just like this, so I get a very open shoulder angle. As I'm at the top, I'm going to actually try and reach beyond so that I'm letting my shoulder blade rotate up. And then on the way back down, I'm gonna come slowly in a 1, 2, 3, and right back up. And as you see, as I push back up, I push fast. I pause up here at the top, and I come back in a 1, 2, 3 cadence, back up, and a 1, 2, 3 cadence. Now, one of the reasons I love to use the landmine, just an aside, is that the landmine gives you the flexibility and the freedom that you might feel in a dumbbell or with a kettlebell press. And so that allows me to train one arm at a time and really work on lots of different ranges of strength in the movement, but also stability side to side. The difference between a dumbbell and a landmine is that the landmine has a fixed end. So because I have a fixed end, I have this freedom to go side to side, but I also have enough of the stability of the barbell that I can lean into it and I can work on some of these positions to make my shoulder feel really strong and healthy and practice good stability overhead when I'm in this pause position at the top. 2 more reps where I'm going up fast, pause, 1, 2, 3, up, pause, 1, 2, 3. So that's how we're gonna do the landmine kneeling press. And now let's move on to the Goblet Cyclist Squat. The Cyclist Goblet Squat, movement number 2 of this strength superset, is one of my favorite movements to help us illustrate the second key concept of today, which is full range of motion. Now, a cyclist squat without the goblet is simply when we put our heels up on an elevated surface. If you have a weight plate like this, you can use that, or if you have a slant board, that's also a great tool to perform cyclist squats. By lifting the heels, what that allows us to do is get a deeper range of motion. You are going to be able to overcome ankle mobility restrictions. The knees are going to come forward. I'm going to be able to sit my hips lower and actually get my hamstrings and my butt closer to my heels when I have my heels elevated on a slight surface. This is a trick and a tool that a lot of coaches will use when people have squats that are very lean forward. This is often a result of tight ankles, and by putting your heels up onto a surface, people can get much deeper into their squats. Now, why is that important? Well, full range of motion or longer ranges of motion, especially to build healthy, strong joints, is critical. Every time we don't use the full range of our joints, if we're only squatting halfway constantly, or we're constantly sitting at 90 degrees, our joints and our tissues start to adapt to those positions. It's a perfect example of use it or lose it. So when it comes to training, all the exercises that I like to select for our strength training that can help build muscle but also keep our joints healthy are ones that allow us to go through a deep, full range of motion. And for the squat, I can't think of a better one than the cyclist goblet squat. Now, the goblet portion of this is simply placing the dumbbell or a kettlebell or any weight right underneath your chin. And what that allows me to do also is, because now I have a counterweight on the front of my body, I can sit back further, I can keep my torso very upright, I can let my knees travel forward, and I can get a deeper squat in this way. More range of motion with load, and now I'm applying the tempo that we talked about before. 3 seconds down, 1 second pause, up fast, 3 seconds down, 1 second pause, up fast, and again, 3 seconds down, 1 second pause, and up fast. So, just to summarize again, the goblet cyclist squat, the points of performance, keeping the kettlebell or the dumbbell right underneath your chin, staying as upright as possible, and driving your butt down as low as you can get it, pain-free, and back up. And remember to keep that slow tempo on the way down, and pausing at the bottom so we can get a deep stretch in our hips and our knees and our ankles to build great stability and mobility in those joints. Now let's head on over to the pull-up rig and cover movement number 3. Movement number 3, the supinated grip strict pull-up. Now this movement pairs extremely well with a squat. Coming off of a squat, we're going to take a short rest period. We're going to come over and start to do pull-ups. And because those two movements are very opposite, different parts of the body, you're not going to come with a lot of fatigue into this pull-up, so you can get a good quality set. Now I'm choosing the supinated grip pull-up because I find that this grip is going to help people with their mobility and flexibility in their shoulders. It's not a position that a lot of people train very frequently. We're gonna focus on, and as I demonstrated, I wanna hit those 2 points that we've covered already, full range of motion and tempo. With the full range of motion on a pull-up, one of the most important parts is to achieve a full stretch at the bottom. This is where you're gonna stretch out your lats and your back musculature the most, and this is where you're gonna get the most benefit in terms of muscle building and hypertrophy. So every repetition, we're gonna come all the way down to a full dead hang. We're gonna get a 1 second pause and a stretch before we come back up to the top. Let me show you what that looks like. This is the bottom position, and I almost want you to be in a passive position where you're hanging and relaxing in the shoulders. From there, it's pulling up to the top, and then a 1, 2, 3 second eccentric or lowering with another pause, and back up. 1, 2, 3, pause, up. 1, 2, 3, pause. Now, the pull-up is a high skill and a high strength demand exercise. And when I tell you the repetitions that you're going to be doing for this workout very shortly, you might recognize that, hey, I don't know if I can do 10 to 12 pull-ups specifically at that tempo. It is very challenging. And if that is you, you have two options. You can either use a band or some type of an assistance method on your pull-ups, or alternatively, you can do a body row. So I'll demonstrate what a body row looks like, but we're going to achieve a lot of the same concepts as the pull-up. We're going to use a supinated grip, and depending on how much you angle your body, you can make this very challenging or relatively easy. So this would be my 3 seconds down, get a stretch at the bottom, up fast, 3 seconds down, stretch at the bottom, up fast, 3 seconds down, stretch at the bottom. And I assure you, even if you feel strong and very capable and you have a lot of skill in this exercise or this movement, this can also be a very demanding upper body pulling exercise to complement or to supplement rather your pull-ups. So those are the three movements that we have today. And I've only covered two of the key concepts. So here is the third key concept that we need to talk about. When we're gonna do this big strength superset, the third point is short timed rest intervals. I talked at the beginning about the value of combining strength training for muscle building, but if we add in one tip, we can actually create a work capacity or a cardiovascular training environment. And if we have short rest intervals between these long sets of slow tempo, full body exercises, and that short rest period, your cardiovascular training will actually elevate. You'll get some aerobic work in there, and your fitness capacity will improve overall while you're building muscle. And one of the questions people start to ask me is, if we have such short rest intervals, isn't that going to take away from my ability to lift heavy weights and to actually build muscle? And the research doesn't support it. The research says that actually in these superset environments, you can build as much muscle, you can lift just as strong, because if you think about it, from when we started doing our right arm kneeling landmine press, through all the different exercises and these 45-second rest periods that we're going to use today, by the time I get back to doing that right arm again, it's been at least 4 minutes where I've had a chance to rest that movement pattern. So we're gonna dive into the full body workout using the kneeling landmine press, the goblet cyclist squat, the strict supinated pull-up or body row with very defined 45-second rest periods. We're gonna hit those tempos. We're gonna make sure we're getting full range of motion on every rep. We're gonna set our egos aside because we might not be able to lift as heavy, but the intensity is going to increase as you go through this. And when we combine all that together, we're keeping our joints healthy. We're building muscle and we're building aerobic capacity, all of which make us look good and move well. Now you've seen the movements. Now you understand the three concepts that we're going to focus on, which is full range of motion, tempo, and really paying attention to our short timed rest intervals. And here's the full workout that you are going to do. First is you're going to perform a landmine kneeling press on each arm for 10 to 12 reps. The tempo is 3 seconds down, no pause at the bottom, up fast, and pause at the top. After you've completed both arms, you're gonna take a 45-second rest and you're gonna move on to part 2, which is the cyclist goblet squat. For this, the tempo is going to be 3 seconds down, 1 second pause, up fast, no rest at the top, immediately into the next squat. And for this, you're aiming for 12 to 15 reps. After you've completed your cyclist squats, take a 45-second rest and move on to part 3. This is the supinated grip pull-up or supinated grip body row, depending on your skill and strength level. For this tempo, it's going to be 3 seconds down, a 1 second pause to get a full stretch at the bottom, up fast, and no pause at the top. Again, we're going to aim for that 10 to 12 rep range, just like we did for the landmine press. When you finish those supinated pull-ups or body rows, you're going to take a 45-second rest, and you're going to start over from the top. Another round of landmine presses. This workout is 4 to 5 total sets, and you're gonna stick to these tempos very precisely, you're gonna stick to these rest periods very precisely, and you're gonna challenge yourself through the fullest range of motion that you can achieve pain-free. This is the workout for the day. Get after it. Let's go. All right, I hope you got some useful tips on how to take functional bodybuilding principles and apply it to your resistance training so that you can look good and move well. Again, I'm Marcus Philly, and if you want to find more of my content, head over to any of the social media platforms, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, at Marcus Philly. Please send me questions. I'd be happy to engage with you there or right here in the comments. And make sure you check out more from Transparent Labs on their YouTube channel. They've got a lot of great content coming your way. Take care.